Hey guys, it is Finn here. That is of course FYWN, and of course the Premier League season is right around the corner and I am so excited. I think it's going to be a great season, just less than a week away. And yeah, I've made a bit closer this prediction video to the season compared to other YouTubers, just because I wanted to see how some transfers played out. Now let's get straight into this video with the relegation zone. I think team number one that will get relegated is Brighton. I think Brighton's chances of staying in the Premier League is the same as Zinedine Zidane growing his hair back. It's just not going to happen. I don't really see them really growing on their structure from last season. I think they've got nothing really special in their team, bar Matt Ryan in the goalkeeper position. They were 17th last season, so they just missed out on that relegation zone. So for that reason, I think they will go down because they haven't really built strongly or enough on their team from last season. Next team that will be going down is Sheffield United, who was second in the English Championship last season. I think they will also end up going down because, I mean, it's a bit like a 40-year-old man at a One Direction concert. I mean, it just really sticks out like a sore thumb, not really supposed to be there and belong somewhere else.
Ooh, you're hard, showing off.
I think, look, Sheffield, bar Dean Henderson, the Manchester United goalkeeper out on loan there, who of course got the Golden Glove for them last season in the English Championship. I mean, bar that, I don't think the team really has anything to offer to the Premier League, and I think they are going to struggle in the Premier League. That's why I put them in 19th. They will go down. Now, of course, in my 18th position, I think will be the English Championship winners from last season, Norwich City. I know lots of people won't like that opinion. I know, don't boo me. But I do think that they will struggle against the big dogs of the Premier League. I mean, look, their midfield and attack is very good on how they get forward and how they do the attacking play. When it comes to defense and goalkeeper, I think they will struggle against the big teams in the Premier League, or at least against most attackers in the Premier League. I think they'll all get relegated, these three teams. Now, of course, the team that will just miss out in relegation will be Aston Villa. I think Aston Villa will kind of struggle in the Premier League, yet I don't think they'll go down. They did end up in 5th place in the English Championship last season, worse than the other teams that were promoted, but I think they'll stay up because I think they've really got a strong team. Look, I mean, they spend a lot of money, more money than any other team in the Premier League, but I think they'll stay up in comparison to them because, I mean, look, we looked at Fulham last season. They spent more money than anyone else, yet they still got relegated. It depends on how they gel together, and I don't know if Aston Villa, the new teammates, will gel together that well yet. So time will tell, and that's why I don't think they'll do that well. But I think they could still do well because they do have quite a lot of good players, and they just got Tom Heaton from Burnley, who I think is an excellent signing. But let's be honest, without the likes of Axel Tuanzebe, who's gone back to Manchester United, and Abraham, the top scorer from last season, who's gone back to Chelsea and is now their new number 9, I think it's a bit like riding a bicycle without wheels. I mean, you don't go anywhere really fast.
This is great banter. It really is.
And of course, next up is Newcastle. Newcastle, I think, will do much worse than last season, purely because, I mean, look, there was supposed to be a financial takeover. I don't really see that having an effect. That hasn't really gone into play. And of course, they've got a new manager, and I think it's just going to be a painful season for Newcastle because they have lost a bunch of major players, major strikers, and at the end of the day, they would rather watch a Joker magic trick. Next up is Burnley. Burnley, of course, were 15th last season. I think they'll be 15th again. Nothing really special. Not really sure what they're doing, but I think they'll manage to survive. I think they'll end up just staying there in the Premier League. I think after that season where they came 7th, I think they've gone down heavily. I mean, look, any of these lower teams that I put here could be in the relegation zone. I don't think Burnley will be in the relegation zone per se, but I don't think they'll do very well next season. Now, of course, the team above that in 14th position, Crystal Palace, they were 12th last season. I think they'll be 14th this season because they have lost Aaron Wan-Bissaka. I think that's a huge one, and they could still potentially use Wilfred Zaha to Everton, which I think would be a huge loss for them. And of course, as I compare to Aston Villa riding a bike without wheels, this is more like being a human without arms and legs. I think it's going to be a bit of a battle for Crystal Palace without those big players, because those are literally the big players for Crystal Palace, and I wouldn't be surprised if they got relegated. I think they have tendencies to go in really bad forms at times. Next up, I'm going to put Southampton. Southampton, I think it's going to be a very Shane Long season for them. I think they're just going to do slightly better by like 3 positions compared to last season, because they do have a much better manager. They've got lots of young talents in the team. They've got a lot of good players, but I don't think they'll overperform or they'll do super well or do anything super exciting next season. That's why I'm just putting them in the 13th position. Watford, of course, is in the 12th position, reaching their first final in many years. That was against Manchester City, where they got absolutely thrashed. I think Watford could do relatively well this coming season, but they are like a bit of a dodgy car. They start off well after the rental, it's all's looking good, but then the tires fall off, the doors fall off, the whole car explodes, and it doesn't end up being what they expected. That's why I don't think they'll break into that top 10. Troy Deeney is getting old, but if they got a bunch of younger players, really, really high-profile players that are a bit younger, even on loan, I think they would have more of a chance. But at the moment, I think they're just going to miss out on that top 10 position by 1 or 2 spots. And of course, the team that will just be missing out in top 10, in my opinion, is going to be West Ham. I think they'll do worse by 1 position in the Premier League, just because other teams ahead of them have strengthened, not necessarily because I think West Ham's gotten worse. Of course, Arnautovic has just disappeared. He's made that move to China. And of course, they've just brought in Haller, or however you pronounce it, the new striker, who I think could do really well for West Ham. I think we'll all have to see. But as I said, they're just going to go down by 1 position compared to last season, not because they're worse in the team, but because teams ahead of them have bettered their teams. And now the team in 10th position, I think, is going to be Leicester. I think Leicester has officially lost Harry Maguire to Manchester United, which, I mean, I'm so excited about. And if you want to know if I think he's worth the £80 million, check my video up above I made about him. But I think Leicester City, now with that amount of money, they can buy 2 okay or really good centre-backs for that team. And overall, the team's looking pretty good. I think they'll still break into that top 10, 1 worse than last season, though. There's still have Vardy, who's getting a bit older. Schmeichel's good, Chilwell's good, Maddison's good, a bunch of other players are good, but I think they'll just scrape that 10 position. And now number 9, I think, will be Bournemouth. I think Bournemouth is like pretty much the definition of mediocre when it comes to being mediocre. But overall, I think with Aka, with King, with Wilson, with Brooks, with Fraser, they've got a lot of talent in the team that could really propel them into the higher parts of the top 10. Of course, I wouldn't necessarily say Europa League, but I think Bournemouth could relatively do well, almost like twice as well as what they did last season. Now, of course, the team that I will be putting in the 8th position is Everton. I really want to put them in the 7th position, but by Christmas time, they are playing literally all the big dogs of the Premier League, all the top 6 teams, multiple times, and I think it's going to absolutely destroy them, and it's going to be a horrible Christmas for them come December. But otherwise, Everton have made some really good signings. They've lost Idrissa Gueye, which I think is a huge loss for them, and brought in Delph, which is not nearly as good in my opinion. But overall, I think Everton's still going to do well. I would like to put them in that 7th Europa League position, but I don't think they're going to get that just because they've lost Idrissa Gueye and because Christmas time is going to be so hectic for them. Now, 7th position, I'm going to put Wolves. Of course, they were 7th last season. They will play Europa League football, and that could have a huge impact on them. But at the end of the day, they could potentially break into that top 6 position. They could just break into that top 6, a bit like a mom breaking into a Black Friday sale. Could be very hectic, very rough, very dangerous to see, very dangerous to be around. But overall, Wolves is very good, and I think they deserve to be at least in the top 7. And one of these days, Everton or Wolves or someone else will break into the top 6 and break the streak that's been going on. Now, 6th position, this is where it gets very interesting. I am going to put Arsenal. I know lots of people are going to say it's because I'm a Manchester United fan. It's not that. I just think the defense is going to be a huge problem. They've brought in Pepe, which I think is a huge signing for them. He could provide a lot of assists and a lot of goals for Arsenal. But at the end of the day, if they don't improve their defense, it's going downhill very fast for Arsenal. And in 5th place, I'm going to put Chelsea. Yes, I know lots of people are going to be a fan of that one. But at the end of the day, they don't have a world-class striker there, and I think lots of the players are getting a bit older. There are lots of young players too that could potentially do well. I just don't see them doing super well, especially because they've got a new manager and they can't buy players. And let's be honest, everything's just falling apart for Chelsea. Everything that they want is a bit like building blocks falling down. They've literally lost their manager, their best player, can't make transfers. Everything's just going against them. And of course, they will be playing Champions League next season, and I think everything's going to fall apart for Chelsea because they won't be able to make it in the Champions League, which is going to make them struggle in the Premier League and so on and so forth. Manchester United in 4th. Yes, I'm putting my team in the Premier League position purely because I don't think they can do worse than last season. They've got 4 of the best defenders in the league now, in my opinion. I think it's very, very good. Not the best 4 defenders, obviously, but a very strong competing with Shaw, Lindelof, Maguire, Bissaka, and of course David De Gea behind them. I think that's so strong, and I think that's good enough to get them into the Champions League. And of course, they only play Europa League this season, so of course that's less pressure, less stress, and it can help them into a Champions League spot next season because they have less pressure. Now, third place, I'm going to put Spurs. I didn't want to put that. I originally wanted to put them fourth or fifth, but of course, I think they've just got so many good players. They just won their first trophy in like ages.
I got a jar of dirt. I got a jar of dirt.
And I think Spurs could do very well with the players. And of course, if you don't know, I've made a video about who I think the most important players in the top 6 of the Premier League are. And of course, I just think Spurs are really, really strong all around when it comes to defense, when it comes to goalkeeping, when it comes to midfielding, when it comes to striking. And now to get into the top 2, Liverpool and Manchester City, I think number 2 will be Liverpool. I mean, Liverpool are really, really strong. I'm sorry, I really do think they do deserve to win the Premier League. They are super strong. But I mean, there's just numbers of factors why I think Manchester City will win. First of all, Liverpool's pre-season has been a bit, well, you know. And of course, they haven't really strengthened their squad in any way. I mean, they've gotten rid of Sturridge, they've gotten rid of Lallana, and of course, they've really only brought in spotty teenagers who would only really suit in a garage band at the moment. I mean, they're not really going to start, to be 100% honest. I mean, look at them. And just overall, I just see Manchester City having a lot more depth. Of course, the Community Shield final is the day of recording, I do believe. So this video will only go up after that. So we'll have to see what happens there. Of course, that could have a huge impact. But overall, I just see Manchester City having a lot more depth. They're just a much stronger team, but maybe in a season or two, it is Liverpool's time to shine, get a title. But overall, I just see Manchester City being so much stronger. But guys, I hope you have enjoyed this video. This is, of course, my prediction video, so it's just my opinion. Put your opinions down below. Of course, if you have enjoyed this video, like, subscribe, comment, all of the good things. Okay, so my camera cut out at the last second, so I thought I'd just give you a proper farewell. So yeah, guys, just stay awesome. Cheers.